Well, Alex Murdaugh took the stand today, and the first question out of the defense counsel's mouth was that you at the kennels on Paul's video? His answer, yes. Second question, were you at the kennel that night? Answer, yes. Did you lie to law enforcement about being there? Answer, yes. Did you lie in the interviews? Answer, yes. Why did you lie? Well, make no mistake about it, folks. Alex Murdaugh rehearsed and refined his testimony before he took the stand today. And I'm really interested in what this guy has to say, but I'm most interested in how he's going to respond to the cross-examination by the prosecution that follows. Welcome to Profiling Evil and this special edition on the Murdaugh trial. Thanks for hitting that like and subscribe button. Ring the bell, make sure you're subscribed, and share us with your friends. Now listen, you were like thousands of people probably glued to their mobile devices, their home computers, or their televisions as Alex Murdaugh took the stand to testify in his own behalf in his murder trial. If you go back, you'll see that I predicted that this guy would do it. His personality just seemed to me like the kind of person that would have to get up and declare his innocence. I said it on Court TV. I said it on Nancy Grace, and I said it on News Nation. I believed that Murdaugh would testify, and boy, oh boy, did he. Now, when he was asked why he lied, he simply replied, "Hey, my addiction led me to paranoia. My fellow attorneys told me not to talk to anybody." Okay, they told you not to talk to anybody, but did they tell you to lie? He says, "Oh no, all this happening at the time, deputy sheriffs are taking gunshot residue off me. I'm sitting in a police car being questioned about my relationship with my son and wife." And he said, "Frankly, my distrust of SLED agents caused paranoia thoughts." Well, he said also that on June 7th, he wasn't thinking clearly. He said, "I don't think I was capable of reasoning, and I lied about being there, and I'm sorry that I did it." He continued, "I'm sorry to Buster. I'm sorry to Grandma. I'm sorry to both of our families. Most of all, I'm sorry to Mag and to Paul. That's what he called his son. He said, "I would never intentionally do anything to hurt either one of them. Ever. Really powerfully stating that. Well, intentionally is the question. What about in the heat of the moment? Or under the influence of drugs and alcohol, or drugs only, or learning that your drug stash had been taken away? Could all of those lead to poor choices?" And he made this incredible statement, "Oh, what a tangled web we weave." I'll say, Alec, the question I have in these circumstances is, how do we trust what you have to say today? And frankly, the only way we're going to be able to trust these things is to back them up with other forms of evidence. And frankly, I believe that's why Alec took the stand today, because the evidence, forensic, physical, behavioral, circumstantial, were all overwhelming, and they decided that that was the only thing they could do to combat it. I might be wrong, but that's my personal feeling. So for those of you who felt like the state hasn't put a good case forward, I think Alex's testimony is indicative that the defense is worried that they aren't moving the marker in their favor. And I'm wondering what you have to think about that. And here's what happened in the day. But we're going to watch this so you can catch it all by yourself here. But here's how he did. He said, "I started the workday fairly normal," he said. I'm thinking, you didn't mention the fact that your employer accused you of stealing millions of dollars from him. I guess that's a normal day. I don't know. He said that he and Paul goofed off on the property. Now, he said Paul got home at 5 p.m. The records show that Alec didn't show up until after 6. Now, he corrected that and said, okay, maybe I was wrong. It was maybe 7 p.m. when he got home. But he said was they goofed off, that he and Paul were extremely close. It made me reflect on Paul's injuries and the tight quarters where he was murdered. And I have to agree, if in fact Alec is responsible for their murders, they were extremely close. He said he spoke to Maggie briefly and then he went and took a shower, and that's how he explained getting into that other change of clothes. He didn't explain what happened to his clothing, and he made a big, powerful statement toward the end of the morning, right before the lunch break, about how that's why, and the only reason police knew there was a change of clothing is because his lawyers revealed it. I don't know if that's true. I think there was a video showing him next to a tree that same day and in different clothes when police arrived. He said the family had dinner together, said he didn't want to go down to the kennels because he knew he'd probably have to work and start sweating again, so he just stayed in the house. Said he changed his mind a little later, jumped on the golf cart, and rode over to the kennels, about 10 minutes to 9. Makes me wonder if somebody sitting in that golf cart might be at about the 5'2" level. I don't know. Anyway, he admits that he was in the video that Paul captured at the kennels. Again, that lie that he was forced to admit he lied about. And then he returned to the house, went to his mother's, came home, discovered the gruesome crime scene, called police, and then he talks about all the things he did after. I'm not exactly sure why the judge or the prosecution allowed him just to ramble on rather than forcing the defense to ask him specific questions. Maybe it was masterful on the prosecution's part to get all of the little bits and pieces that they could tear apart a little later, because that's what's going to be important as we watch the cross-examination. So let's do that.
But do you wish to confer with lawyers some more about whether or not you should testify?
No, sir. I don't need to talk to them anymore.
Have you made a decision as to whether you're going to testify?
Yes, sir.
All right. And what is your decision?
I am going to testify. I want to testify.
All right. Very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Murdaugh, on June 7th, 2021, did you take this gun or any gun like it and shoot your son Paul in the chest in the feed room at your property off Moselle Road?
No, I did not.
Mr. Murdaugh, did you take this gun or any gun like it and blow your son's brains out on June 7th or any day or any time?
No, I did not.
Mr. Murdaugh, did you take a .300 blackout such as this and fire it into your wife Maggie's leg, torso, or any part of her body?
No, I did not.
Did you shoot a .300 blackout into her head, causing her death?
Mr. Griffin, I didn't shoot my wife or my son anytime. Ever.
Mr. Murdaugh, is that you on the kennel video at 8:44 p.m. on June 7th, the night Maggie and Paul were murdered?
It is.
Were you in fact at the kennels at 8:44 p.m. on the night Maggie and Paul were murdered?
I was.
Did you lie to Sled Agent Owen and Deputy Laura Rutland on the night of June 7th and told them that you stayed at the house after dinner?
I did lie to them.
Did you lie to Agent Owen and Agent Croft on the follow-up interview on June 10th that the last time you saw Maggie and Paul was at dinner?
I did lie to them.
And in the interview of August 11th, did you tell Agent Owen and Agent Croft, did you lie to them by telling them that you were not down at the kennels on that night?
Yes.
Alec, why did you lie to Agent Owen, Agent Croft, and Deputy Rutland about the last time you saw Maggie and Paul?
As my addiction evolved over time, I would get in these situations or circumstances where I would get paranoid thinking It could be anything that triggered it. It might be a look somebody gave me. It might be a reaction somebody had to something I did. It might be a policeman following me in a car. That night, June 7th, after finding Mags and Pawpaw, don't talk to anybody without Danny with you. All my partners were just repeatedly telling me that. I had a deputy sheriff taking gunshot tests from my hands. I'm sitting in a police car with David Owen asking me about my relationship with my wife and my son. And all those things coupled together after finding them, coupled with my distrust for SLED, caused me to have paranoid thoughts. Normally, when these paranoid thoughts would hit me, I could take a deep breath real quick and just think about it, reason my way through it, and just get past it really quickly. On June the 7th, I wasn't thinking clearly. I don't think I was capable of reason. And I lied about being down there. And I'm so sorry that I did. I'm sorry to my son Buster. I'm sorry to Grandma and Papa T. I'm sorry to both of our families. Most of all, I'm sorry to Mags and Pawpaw. I would never intentionally do anything to hurt either one of them. Ever. Ever.
Did you continue lying after that night? Did you not?
But once I lied, I continued to lie. Yes, sir.
Why?
You know, oh, what a tangled web we weave. But once I told the lie, I told my family, I had to keep lying.
And how much did you weigh?
On June 7th, well, I'm a hair over 6'4", right at 6'4". On June the 7th, I was about 265 pounds, 264, 265.
And this was in June, June 7th.
Yes, sir.
You know, when you're outside, riding around and doing, do you get hot and sweaty?
Absolutely. Paul and I had done some things. We unloaded the bulldozer, cleaned the bulldozer. We'd fooled around. Yeah, I sweated. I was heavy, and taking prescription pills also makes you sweat worse, or at least taking oxycodone makes you sweat more than you normally do.
So was it unusual for you to take a shower when you got back to the house?
Not at all.
And after you took a shower, what did you change into?
I changed into the clothes that you've seen in this trial, shorts and the shirt.
Okay. When you got out of the shower and changed clothes, what did you do next?
I went back out where Mags and Pawpaw were
What were
for
they
dinner.
doing? What was going on?
Mags had, as you've heard, Blanca had prepared dinner, but it had been cooked earlier. Mags had fixed I know Mags had fixed mine and her plate because I didn't fix a plate. She may have fixed Paw Paw. Paw Paw was eating, and Paw Paw was almost done eating by the time I got back out, which also wasn't unusual. I mean, Paw Paw was always on the go. I mean, he never sat still. And, you know, he'd sit down to eat, but then he's going on to his next item.
And
So then Maggie wanted to go to the kennels, and I had eaten dinner. I laid back on the couch where I was sitting. Maggie wanted to go to the kennels, and she asked me to go, and I didn't go at that time. I didn't want to go.
why didn't you want to go?
It was hot. I just had a shower. I knew I'd end up doing more work, sweating more, and the dogs is always a chaotic scene, and I just didn't want to go right then.
And did you stay in the house?
Yes,
For how long?
not long. I laid back on the couch, put my feet up, and like many times when Maggie asked me to do something that I didn't want to do or didn't start out doing, I changed my mind and decided I'm going to ride up there. And I did.
And how did you get to the kennels?
I went on the golf cart.
Was the golf cart at the house, the main house?
Yeah. It was there most of the time.
And when you got down to the kennels, what was happening?
It's just what I thought it was. It was a little bit of chaos. I mean, it was clear to me that Max had just let the dogs out.
Now we've seen, this video of Paul with Cash, Rogan's dog. Did you know that was going on? What do you remember about that?
Yeah, I knew Paul was fooling with. When I pulled up on the golf cart, Maggie was standing back, sort of where the driveway would be. It sort of runs out at the feed room. Storage room's what we call it. It's been called the feed room. But it sort of ran out. Maggie was a little bit further up where she could see back in that angle where the dogs were. Paul was fooling with Rogan's dog back towards the kennel. If I remember when I first got there, Paul was more in the driveway, but then I knew Paul was in the kennel fooling with Cash, yes. But did I know what he was doing? I didn't know exactly what he was doing, no.
When you got back to the Moselle property, how did you enter the property? What entrance did you use?
Came right back through the main gate.
And what did you do then?
Went straight to the house.
And when you got to the house, what did you do?
I went inside.
Were lights on when you pulled up? Or?
Lights were on in the house for sure. I can't remember if there were floodlights on or not. I don't believe there were any floodlights on, but there were definitely lights. All the lights in the house were on, yes.
And when you, how long did you stay inside the house, roughly?
Now that I've seen the benefit of these records, I was in there several minutes.
Obviously, were you surprised that Paul and Maggie had not made it back to the house?
I don't know if surprised is the right word, but I thought they would have been back by then. Right. But did it cause me to go into any? It wasn't like I was shocked. But I thought they would be there. I distinctly remember. I went and looked. Sometimes I was very hot-natured. Number one, I was hot. I was heavy, and I was taking pills, so I was always hot. Maggie was always cold. Sometimes she would watch TV. We had a TV in the hunting room. You see on the wall there. Sometimes Maggie would be in there watching TV where she could have the thermostat different than we always kept it cold in the main part of the house. So I know I went in there and looked in there for her. It's not unusual for Maggie to be taking a bath and be not able to hear me, so I went back there, and I know I did those two things and looked in those two places. And they weren't there. And so, you know, I knew they'd been at the kennels, and I assumed they were still up there.
So what'd you do?
I went to the kennels. I may have tried to call them. In fact, I probably did try to call them. I would think I called them. But as I sit here right now, I'm not positive, but I would think I did. Would think I tried to call them to see.
And now, did you drive down to the kennels in your Suburban?
I did.
And what'd you see?
Saw what y'all have seen pictures of. So bad. Can I have some water? Yeah, I went to
Did you see them on the ground when you're pulling up in your Suburban?
I did.
And what'd you do when you came to a stop, Alec?
I think I jumped out of my car. I'm not exactly sure what I did, but no, I got out of my car. I know I ran back to my car, called 911. I called 911. I was on the phone with 911. And I was trying to tend to Pawpaw. I was trying to tend to Maggie. And I just went back and forth between them.
Were you going to Paul and Maggie while you were on the phone with the 911 operators?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And in a little bit, I'm going to play the 911 tape, but I just want to ask you, and you've told law enforcement that's been played here in the court, what did you do when you went up to Paul at some point in time?
And Paul. Paul was so bad. At some point, I know I tried to check him for a pulse. I know I tried to turn him over.
When you say you tried to turn him over, why were you trying to turn him over?
I don't know. I don't know why I tried to turn him over. Me and my boys laying face down. And he's done the way he's done. His head was the way his head was. I could see his brain laying on the sidewalk. I didn't know what to do. I mean, I tried to turn him over. grabbed him by the belt loop and tried to turn him over. And when I did, his phone popped out. His phone popped out. And she picked it up and I put it right back there.
Do you have any idea how it popped out?
I mean, I know it came out of his pocket when I pulled on his belt loop. When I pulled him to turn him over. And it just popped out. And I mean, it popped right beside him. It sat right beside him.
Were you able to turn Paul at all?
I mean, I didn't. I don't know if I was able to. I didn't turn him over. No.
What side of the on what side of Paul were you when you were doing this?
I was on the side that was away from. I was on the side that was away from where my car was.
Okay.
I mean,
What'd you do with the phone?
I put it back on Pawpaw.
You know if you put it, you know which way it was pointing, upside down, downside, anyway?
I couldn't tell you anything about it. I know his phone popped out. I picked it up and I put it back on him.
Did you see any messages on Paul's phone?
No.
Did you go to Maggie?
I did.
Did you touch her?
I did.
Where did you touch Maggie?
I think I touched her down just around like, I don't know. If you ask me exactly, I think I touched her down around her waist, but I don't know. It was so bad. Excuse me. I mean, I know I went back and forth. I went back and forth between them. I know.
Alex, jury's heard about testimony of you stealing client funds. Did you do that?
I did.
Did you steal or divert that Ferris fee away from the law firm?
I did.
How did you get in such a financial predicament that led you to steal money that wasn't yours?
You know, I'm not quite sure how I let myself get where I got, but it came from, I battled that addiction for so many years. I was spending so much money on pills.
And what was the change in plans?
Not to get pills from him anymore. And instead, I asked him to shoot me.
Did you ask him to shoot you as a sympathy ploy? Or did you want
As a sympathy ploy?
Yes, sir. Why did you ask him to shoot you? What was the end goal that you wanted to accomplish?
I meant for him to shoot me so I'd be gone.
And who was this? Who did you ask to do this?
Eddie Smith.
And did he in fact shoot you?
He did.
And where was that located? Not your gunshot, but where were you shot in Hampton or Colleton County? Where were you?
It's Hampton County. It's right on the border of Salkehatchie Road. It runs right along the Salkehatchie River.
And why did you want to be gone?
I mean, I knew all this was coming to a head. I knew how humiliating it was going to be for my son. I mean, I'd been through so much. At the time, in the bad place that I was, it seemed like the better thing to do.
Sure. And you, 5 jury trials over all that time, but you had a badge that entire time, is that correct?
I had a badge for a big part of that time, yes, sir.
You said you did 5 criminal jury trials as a prosecutor, correct?
Assisted in those, or was doing them, yes, sir. I believe I was actually the lead lawyer in one of them. I helped my dad in the other 4.
Still part of preparing the case?
Yes, sir.
Still part of gathering the evidence and putting it together for trial?
In a criminal case, we didn't do much of the gathering of the evidence. We took what law enforcement had gathered, but
putting it together for the criminal trial, correct?
yes, sir.
Presenting evidence in court?
Yes, sir.
Giving jury argument?
I did the closing argument in one of them, yes, sir.
Did you ever have any cases that you prosecuted that went short of a jury trial, either pled out or were dismissed for some reason?
You know, I'm sure that at some point over between 1998 and 2021 that I took some plea, but as we sit here today, I can't specifically remember that, and I don't ever remember working a case up for trial that didn't go to trial. But I'm sure at some point in time I was involved in some level on a guilty plea or guilty pleas.
And you'd agree with me that the civil system and the criminal system have a lot of differences, correct?
A lot of differences and a lot of similarities.
And a lot of similarities, and that's where I was going next. And fundamentally, it's about analyzing the evidence, preparing for trial, presenting that case, and making your argument to the jury, correct?
That's a big part of it.
Okay. And would you agree with me that as cases go on, or as you are preparing for trial, that you analyze the evidence that's been gathered by law enforcement and present the evidence that supports your case, correct? That's just part of it.
Presenting evidence that you deem favorable for your position?
Yeah, that you analyze the evidence and then you put in the evidence that supports your case. It's an ongoing process. Would you agree with that?
That's part of what you do.
And same thing in the civil case, right? As you go along, you may have evidence, but you ultimately analyze that evidence, and some evidence makes the cut and some of it does not. Is that fair to say?
As far as what you're trying to, I think we agree on that.
We would agree on that.
I think so. I'm not exactly sure what your question is, but I think I understand it.
I'm just asking you that as a lawyer, as you've been since 1994, is that right?
That's correct.
It's a simple question. You analyze the evidence that's been gathered, whether civil or criminal, and then present that in court. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right.
That's part of
and
what you do.
That is an ongoing process as you prepare for a case. Is that correct?
An ongoing process as you prepare for, in criminal courts or civil courts?
Either one.
Well, I mean, but there's a distinction, because in civil court you have the deadlines, and so you aren't allowed to gather evidence during a trial or a week before a trial. Or, you know, for instance, if this was a civil trial and we found that OnStar data during the 3rd or 4th week of trial, you wouldn't be able to use it because you're past deadlines. But in a criminal case, you are able to use it.
But you would agree that none of that was the fault of anyone on this side of the table, that GM initially responded they had nothing and then responded all of a sudden that they did.
I don't have an opinion, and that's certainly not anything I'm intending to convey.
You talked to this jury a lot about that, but you know nothing about that particular part of it. Is that what you're telling us? You talked to the jury a lot about the GM data, but you're telling me that you're unaware that GM initially responded to law enforcement's timely request and said they didn't have that, but then in the course of the trial all of a sudden came up and said, you know what, we found something, and that's the reason why it arrived late. You're saying you don't know anything about that after talking to this jury about that?
I don't know a single thing about that. I know that y'all represented that to the court, and I don't have any reason to doubt it.
Good.
But I don't.
And you would agree that that's generally consistent with the telemetry data that the FBI did, correct? The OnStar data.
The OnStar, I think the OnStar data and the telemetry data are totally different.
All right. You don't think they're generally consistent with one another? Is that what you're telling this jury?
No, I'm not telling the jury anything about that. I'm just saying, do I think they're consistent? I think the OnStar data gives you one set of information, and the telemetry data gives you another set of information.
Okay. But you don't think they're consistent? I mean, you talked about it to this jury. I think we're struggling on what seems to be a fairly simple point. Don't you agree?
Mr. Warden, I'm just trying to answer your question,
right.
and so I'm not trying to be difficult. My understanding of what you're referring to as the telemetry data is when the car goes into park and drive and that sort of thing. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
And the GPS information is telling you where a vehicle is on a certain path.
Correct.
And what direction it's going. So I think that they're two different types of information.
The question was, were they consistent with one another?
I guess so. I don't think they contradict each other.
All right. Thank you.
So you want to look at this top one?
Look at the top one.
Okay.
What office does it say that you are on that top one right there? Up there at the top.
State of South Carolina Solicitor, the Solicitor of the 14th Judicial Circuit. It says that as Solicitor of the 14th Judicial Circuit, I do hereby certify that, and it has
Your name.
right, and it has all that data.
What position does it say that you're appointed to?
It says that as Solicitor of the 14th Judicial Circuit, I do certify that Richard A. Murdaugh was on July 1st, 2013, appointed as the Deputy Solicitor of Allendale, Beaufort, Colleton, Hampton, and Jasper counties in and is authorized to enforce the laws in the 14th Judicial Circuit of South Carolina.
Oh, awesome. Can I hold it back?
Yes, sir. And that was Sean Thornton. I've never been Deputy Solicitor, even though that does say that.
All right.
I agree with. And that was signed by Duffy Stone, not by me.
I understand. This is what was given to you.
That's what was given to me.
I went through this whole long thing at the beginning about whether or not you had an association with the law enforcement community, but this was given to you not by your father, but by a successor, correct?
Well, no, sir. I believe we got to this because you were asking me if I took an oath, and I don't remember taking the oath, and then you started asking me about these things.
Okay. And you agree that this card says Deputy Solicitor, right?
I agree that card says Deputy Solicitor.
All right. It is reposing special trust and confidence in your ability, care, prudence, and integrity. Is that what it says on the back of this?
I mean, if you're no, sir. I mean, I trust. If you're reading that off the back of that, I assume that it does.
Did you ever have lights in your vehicle?
In the particular vehicle?
No, in any vehicle.
Yes, sir, I did.
Was that a government vehicle?
No, sir, it was not.
When did you have lights, like blue lights and stuff?
Yes, sir, I had some blue lights.
When did you have blue lights? And let me remember, you did 5 cases over 20 years, and you had blue lights in your vehicle, but it was your private vehicle, correct?
Well, it was the vehicle that I drove. It was a law firm owned vehicle.
The law firm's own vehicle. So how'd you get blue lights in there?
I had them installed.
And who installed them?
I believe that Eddie Gibson installed them.
And who was that?
He's the guy who apparently does blue light work for most of the sheriff's departments in the 14th Circuit and a lot of the police departments.
Did you ever want to be the solicitor?
Now, there was a time period where I did.
Did you ever want to be the solicitor?
Yeah,
solicitor?
There was a time period when I absolutely did.
When was that?
prior to around the time prior to my dad retiring.
Prior to 2006?
Yes, sir.
How long did you explore that?
I mean, I wanted to be a solicitor for a long time, but you know, at the time when my dad retired, I was already struggling with bills, and I knew I couldn't do it.
In 2006?
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about, let's start with Natasha Thomas. Do you remember her?
I do.
How old was she when she became your client?
I'm not sure. She was young.
She was a teenager?
I'm not sure, but I know she was young.
She was underage, correct?
Yes, she was underage. I do believe that.
All right.
In fact, I know that.
And can you tell me what she was injured in this wreck in an automobile wreck, correct?
Yes.
And the company Michelin, that was one of the defendants for an alleged tire issue, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. And do you remember how much Natasha Thomas got in that particular case? And I can show it to you on 334. You remember how much she got?
As a gross settlement, I believe it shows
Yeah.
$2 million.
$2 million. All right. And how much were your or PMPD's fees that would be attributed to you in that out of that $2 million?
$800,000.
$800,000.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir. All right. And so that would be $800,000 in fees that would get attributed to you. That has nothing to do with the money that you subsequently stole from that teenager. Correct?
The $800,000 is different from money that I stole?
Yes.
That's correct.
All right. So you got $800,000 attributed to you with the firm, but that was not enough. You also stole money from that teenager. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. When you did that, did you sit down with her, much as you sat down with this jury, and explain to her what was going on while you were stealing her money?
That would be the normal process, but I certainly don't remember specifically doing that.
That would be the normal process, correct?
That would be. It may be a little different with a teenager, but certainly, I mean.
You would sit down with them across the table and go through these documents, correct?
If that would not be abnormal, yes, sir.
All right. And then you would explain to them what was going on and how they were getting everything they were entitled to, correct?
If I was the one doing it, yes, sir.
And you would look them in the eye while you did that, correct?
It wouldn't be unusual for me to look them in the eye.
While you were doing some fast talking to a teenager, correct?
I certainly was not telling her the truth. I don't know if I was talking fast or slow, but I wasn't telling the truth.
It in a very academic paperwork manner, but every single one of these, you had to sit down and look somebody in the eye and convince them that you were on their side when you were not, correct? That's what you did in every single one of these.
I mean, every time.
Answer my question, yes or no, and then you can explain. I'll let you explain all day long.
Well, I mean, no, sir, that may or may not be true.
Okay.
And Mr. Waters, just to try to get through this quicker, I admit.
I know you want to get through it quicker, but we're not. So answer the question, please.
What I admit is that I misled them, I did wrong, and that I stole their money. Now.
And make this quick, correct? Isn't that what you said? Isn't that what you implied?
No, sir, Mr. Waters. You have charged me with murdering my wife and my son, and I have sat here for all these weeks listening to all this financial stuff that I did wrong, that I'm embarrassed by. I'm happy to talk to you about as much of that as you want to talk about. I'm required to talk about it as much as you want to talk about it. But the fact is I cannot specifically remember sitting down. The details that you're asking me for, I can't tell you. But what I can tell you is that in all these financial situations, I stole money that was not my money. I misled people that I shouldn't have misled, and I did wrong. That may not be true, because in some situations I may not have had to do that. They may have just trusted me to do it.
Okay.
So that's my point is I misled them. There's no question about that. But did I sit down in each particular instance and like you're breaking it down step by step? I can't say that.
Right.
I can say I did wrong. I stole money that wasn't mine, and I shouldn't have done it.
What was that interest rate that y'all thought was such a good idea for these girls? Do you recall what it was?
I can't remember.
The reality is that you needed the money, and this was a convenient source to keep your massive cash flow going as early as 2011, 2012. Isn't that correct?
Well, this was a loan, yes, sir. But exactly why it came from them versus the bank, I can't tell you the details without looking at all that. I can't tell you that off the top of my head.
And despite all you were earning, you would even send Russell emails saying, "Hey, transfer over $75,000 from the Plotter account into my account." Correct? You remember emails to that effect that you would have to him?
Do I remember an email to that effect? No, I don't remember that.
But dispute that there were emails to that effect?
Not if you say there were, Mr. Waters. I don't dispute that. I don't dispute any of this, that I took money that didn't belong to me, that I misled people.
I know that you want the answer to be that simple. That's not what I'm at. We agree on that. We've agreed on that.
Well, no, sir. I don't necessarily want the answer to be simple. I just want everybody to understand I do not dispute that I stole money that was not my money, that I misled people to do that I misled people that trusted me to do that, and that what I did was terrible. I don't dispute that. It's just the way you're asking these questions, and, there's some things in there that I do take issue with.
Okay. You don't remember?
I know that I inflated the fees like I just talked about, but I believe go back to that top of that thing, I believe what I must have done with the structured annuity is I had that $500,000 check, and I must have had that made to forge, as you've heard, to steal that money from Dion Martin.
All right, down at the bottom.
That I shouldn't have.
Is that your signature down there?
It is.
Is that Dion Martin's signature on the other side? You dispute that?
No, I don't dispute that.
I know you don't dispute it, Mr. Murdaugh. You've said that 100 times, haven't you? But you can't recall for this jury one of these people looking them in the eye while you lied to them. You can't recall a single one. I've asked you this 3 times now.
Oh, I promise you.
Your Honor, asked and answered 3 times.
Well, here. Here you go, Mr. Waters.
The point's made, isn't it, Mr. Murdaugh?
I don't know if your point's made or not, but okay. Here's
you don't know that either, do you?
Here's what I will say again. I remember lying to clients of mine. I did it on more than one occasion. I took their money when I shouldn't have taken it. I'm sure that I looked them in the eye. I'm sure that I misled them.
Well, there you go, folks. What are your thoughts on this case? I'm really interested in where you think you would be weighing things if you were sitting on the jury today. Hey, thanks for supporting Profiling Evil, and remember that you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you like podcasts, make sure you're checking out Profiling Evil podcasts on your favorite podcast platform. Thanks for liking us. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for hitting that thumbs up. And thanks for all the support of Profiling Evil. Consider our channel memberships. My favorite, the Academy level. Now, like you, I'm going to continue to watch this thing and wonder where the twists and turns take us next. Thanks for your support of Profiling Evil, and we'll see you all soon at the next crime scene.